Hello, thanks for watching Inside Cottonwood. My name is Tim Elinski. I'm your host today, the mayor of Cottonwood. With me, I'm very fortunate to have Angie Lozano. Today we're going to talk briefly about a few items. She wants to speak about Angie's house, the homeless shelter here in the area, as well as speak about some affordable housing options, and if we have time at the end of this segment, talk about parents of addicted loved ones.
Yes.
So very happy to have you in today, Angie. Thanks for being here. Why don't you just briefly tell us a little bit about you, because I know you have a long family history here in the Valley.
I was born and raised in Cottonwood. Love this area. So glad I never moved away. It's a great community to grow up in. We actually would play at night, and you could be out there in the evening when it got dusk, and you were safe. And it still is. I really will have to say that I still love driving around in the evenings, and it's such a nice and safe community. And people, we're all neighbors, and we're here to help each other. So what I did is started doing some accounting, worked since I was 13, put myself through school, saved enough money to put myself through school at NAU, and became a CFO, got a bachelor's degree in accounting, and purchased some rental properties here in town as a retirement possibility resource as I got older. And then in 2000 I was a CFO and our companies merged, so I lost my job. So I thought, well, let me do something very productive with some of my rental properties. So what I did is I decided to do some communal housing. So it made it affordable for people to live and maintain housing. So I started to do that, and slowly it grew from 2 houses and is now evolved into 10. But what I'm most proud of is my homeless shelter. My homeless shelter, we operate 365 days a year. You check-in is at 6 p.m. and you can leave in the morning at 8. And it is free of charge, co-ed, and pet-friendly. Okay. And no charge for that. So anyone in need can come in and stay. Okay. And what it does, when you have a home, it gives you hope. When you're homeless, it's frustrating, it's overwhelming, and you start to lose hope. So if you just have that good night's sleep, a place where you can shower, you can have something to eat, it really does make a difference the next day. So I'm very proud of that.
Now you said you started out first with communal housing? And about how long ago? Back in 2000?
Back in 2000.
In 2000, okay.
2000, yeah. Okay. And it really worked. The communal housing did work. It was an option for individuals. It wasn't that expensive. They could pay one amount that included rent and utilities. So we started doing that, and it was actually a couples communal living. Okay. And that worked out okay for a while, and then started to have individuals who needed a little bit more attention. Some of them were struggling with drug and alcohol addictions. So I decided to open up a men's recovery home and a women's recovery home that were separate, and did that. And sure enough, that was perfect, because the individuals who were initially living together possibly as a couple really needed to get the tools on taking care of themselves, recovery-wise and just growth-wise, before they could actually start being fully functioning as a couple. So it just slowly started to evolve. As different needs came up, I was luckily able to open up a different home that fit other needs. Wow.
So how many communal homes do you have now?
Currently 10.
Currently 10. Okay.
10, yeah. Okay. And the most recent one over the last 2 years, because I'd say 5 years ago was primarily, the communal living was primarily for individuals who wanted something affordable. They had pets, but they wanted something affordable. Couldn't yet afford to get into an apartment, because first and last are usually required and a lot of deposits. But the trend now, and it's been the last year going on 2, is a lot of senior citizens. They're on fixed incomes or Social Security. They have a pet. Most of them have pets, and it's very hard to find affordable housing, as it is everywhere. It's not just in our community, but everywhere. So with communal housing, though, especially with that age group, what it provides is shared housing, but it gives them more. They're able to, they're not lonely. They interact with each other. A lot of times they prepare meals together. Since they have pets, the majority of them walk their pets together. Most of my homes are with walking distance to everything. So they're walking distance to bus stops, to Old Town. So a lot of times my seniors will actually be walking their pets in the evening or in the morning. And most of my homes are also within 2 or 3 minute walking distance to any of the shops, the galleries, or any of the religious organizations that hold services weekly. So it makes it really easy to become part of the community, and it prevents them from being isolated. Which is a major issue for our senior population. Major issue.
Isolation.
Isolation, yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah, when they start to isolate, what tends to happen is, so basically by having some of the communal housing, it decreases a lot of calls to the emergency room, calls for the ambulance, because a lot of times individuals, especially seniors who are isolated, they're lonely. and they're depressed. And sometimes they don't feel well. So they will sometimes call 911. But that all decreases when you all live together, because sometimes, especially with all my residents, but especially my elderly, they can come home, and if they're not feeling well, the other person in the house will simply ask, "How you doing?" And it's just that one bit of interaction that really can help, as opposed to coming home to an empty house.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. So you have 10 communal housing buildings. How many units total? How many rooms can you let?
Depending on each house, because for my men's home who are in recovery, I have 2 for men and 2 for women. There's more men or women to a room.
Okay.
And they're large houses, but there's more in a room.
Okay.
The reason for that is everyone would love to have their own room. However, when individuals are in early recovery, the worst thing for them to do is be able to isolate. This way, if they're all together in a room, it's less likely for use to happen, and that can also help them in their recovery by being together.
Okay.
And then as you move into the other housing, which is still they're all sober living, which means it's clean and sober, no alcohol or drugs are allowed in any of the communal living homes. It's less restrictive. There's more space, so sometimes it's 2 to a room, sometimes it's just 1 to a room, depending on their needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can house quite a few folks. That's great.
Yes.
Okay.
And luckily enough, I have enough housing that depending on who calls me, I'm able to fit their individual needs based on what they're needing.
And do you have plans on expanding your communal living housing options?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely. I have other homes that I can possibly convert as things come up.
Okay.
Yeah. And I want to quickly share a story of a gal named Sue who came to me. I had her fiduciary call and say, you know, she's going to be out of her apartment. It's going up by $300, which is a big deal.
Right.
When you're on a fixed income, it's a really huge deal. She has an 11-year-old cat, and we need to find her housing. I've been searching everywhere. I've searched in Flagstaff, Prescott, and Cottonwood. I can't find anything. Can you help us? Sure enough, so we did. We put her into a communal home with people who are over 60. The fiduciary was floored. She says, "Angie, I have never seen her do so well." She was with us. She started to take care of herself, put makeup on, comb her hair, take her cat out and clean the litter box. I mean, little things like that to us, which is very common, she wasn't doing.
Right.
So her fiduciary was just, she says, "I've never seen her flourish like this." She has an electric chair. She's a veteran. She uses her electric chair to go down, back and forth to the bus stop, back and forth to Old Town Cottonwood, back and forth to the stores. And the fiduciary was explaining she has never done this well, and she was just amazed. And just the interaction, because she didn't used to talk with anybody. In fact, the fiduciary said that she used to call her at least 5 times a day because she was lonely, and she says now she rarely hears from her.
No kidding.
Yeah.
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 That's amazing.
So it's really incredible what can happen, just changing that one piece. And yet what initially she thought was going to be the worst thing she was going to be dealing with ended up turning out to be the best.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a need in our community too, so I'm so glad that you're helping out with that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And they're not stuck in long-term contracts, so if something comes up that's better fits their needs, you know, if they're not in a long-term contract, they can completely move on to something else that better fits their needs.
And so they don't need to come up with the same first and last month's rent that they would?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, not at all. In fact, most of my residents come to me with no income. Some of them do have income, and then they pay their fees per month. Now, the homeless shelter is completely free. All my recovery homes, all my individuals come to me with no money because they basically have none when they move in. And then we put them on work search, job search to get that situated, and then they can start paying their program fees. And then in the other communal living, most of them will have income eventually, but a lot of times they don't. But it's amazing how just getting them in can just give them the foundation. A lot of them have been in the hospital and have lost everything, which you think being in the hospital, it's good for your health, but a lot of things can fall to the wayside.
Sure.
3 months later, your housing's gone, everything's gone.
Right.
So then you come back out and have to start all over again.
Right.
But sure, once they do, they have a place that they know they are safe and can rest at night. Sure, they're right back up to working again after their health thing is situated. Yeah, they do.
So if folks are interested in your communal housing options, then how would they find out more
They
information?
simply call me.
Call you.
Call me. That's the easiest. They can go and look on our website, angieshouseaz.com, and it shows the different pictures and different things and explains a little bit about ourselves. But easiest way is the telephone number, 928-301-2169.
Great.
And I will return your phone call if I don't immediately pick up, and I can always help. If I can't place you immediately with me, I can always send you in a direction. Since I've been here so long, I luckily enough to have a lot of different resources I can refer them to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take just a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about your homeless shelter, as well as more options for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thanks.
There are people who struggle with addiction and homelessness. Sometimes it may feel like there is nothing we can do to help.
But there is. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help those in need transition away from homelessness.
When you give someone a handout, you could actually be supporting an addiction.
A better life starts with better health, especially for those living in the streets.
Support solutions, not addictions. You can make a difference. Visit cottonwoodcares.com.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride!
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host today, Mayor Tim Elinski, and with me is Angie Lozano. I'm so pleased to have you here today. She's sharing information about the different options that Angie has available for housing some of the vulnerable folks in our community. So we left off discussing your communal housing options, and we kind of were working our way toward your homeless shelter. So if you would, please share a little bit more information about that.
Sure. Homelessness can happen quickly, especially it happens to individuals that really aren't expecting it. A lot of times houses are being sold because it's a great market right now, which is wonderful. And they thought, no problem, you know, I have to be out of my rental at the end of the month. I'll be searching, I'll find a rental in no time. Well, they do start early enough, but unfortunately cannot find the rental. A lot of times it's not pet friendly, and it's a lot to move in. So then they find themselves literally homeless, which they think, okay, not a big deal, I'll just stay in the hotels. Hotels are great. However, that you can just blow right through whatever savings you have. So really the individuals I get in my homeless shelter are our regular neighbors that live here that never thought they'd be in that position. And all of a sudden they're homeless. Right now it's extremely hot, and they're saying, I don't know how I can do this. I can't stay in my car anymore. It's too hot. I need a shower. I need to be able to rest at night. I've been sleeping in the car for 2 weeks and I really can't get a good night's sleep. A lot of them are actually working at the same time that they're experiencing the homelessness. So it's not like they've completely given up. It's just between a rock and a hard place at the moment. So what we try to do is try to give them that little breather so they can come somewhere, no charge, get some sleep, get a shower, and get some food. Because we have a refrigerator where they can keep their food, and microwaves and things like that.
Okay. Yeah. So you say no charge? No charge.
They simply would give me a call, and we have availability. They move in that day. Yeah. And the rules are pretty simple. Clean up after yourself, be nice to everybody else. If you have a pet, keep up after your pet. And of course, no alcohol and drugs allowed on property. And for the most part, everyone does an outstanding job. And especially when it's either hot or cold and we're at our capacity, if it's just one more person that just needs to get in, they're like, no problem, Angie, I can go ahead and sleep with my husband, and they can have my bed. It's really great. Everyone pulls together, and then they help each other.
So you don't find that you need to turn too many people away then?
No, I've been very, very fortunate enough. And then a lot of times, instead of the homeless shelter, they can possibly transition into my men's home, which is, they would come in with no funding, but they're either working and they're going to be waiting for a paycheck, or they're ready to get out there and get back to work. So I can usually accommodate them, which is what makes it nice about having as many alternatives as I have, is I can usually put them somewhere, which is great. And having an option is great, because when you don't have an option and you've been told no for the 40th time that they made a phone call, it gets discouraging. And it makes me feel really good when they say, do you realize you're the only person that first of all answered and called me back, and secondly, you didn't tell me no. So it does. It makes a big difference.
Sure. And do you then, as people transition through your different housing options, do you then provide references and referrals to them as they seek other housing?
Yes, yes. Yeah. And what I do is for all my individuals who are low income, they all get onto the subsidized housing list. And at this point right now, they're anywhere, waiting lists right now are at about 8 months to 2.5 years, but I have everyone got on the lists that qualify so that they can be waiting.
Right.
If they are wanting to find work, we put them on a job search schedule, which is pretty stringent. It's 7 days a week until they find employment. But I will have to say our community is great. Even some of my men and women who have backgrounds like felonies, they don't have any issue finding work.
Right.
We have a very felon understanding community that's willing to put them to work. They know they're clean and sober, trying to do it the right thing. Yep, they get jobs quickly.
Great.
And that's my number one goal, is to have everyone independent. I would love for them to have a job, be able to provide a roof over their head, and never have to depend on anyone again. Because that's really the key.
Right.
Because then when you think you have to depend on someone else, then you don't have hope. You get overwhelmed, you get frustrated, you get discouraged. When you have that, it's amazing how just once they get a job and they're doing this on their own, their whole persona changes.
Right.
Their ability, the way they walk, the way they hold themselves, the confidence level. It's amazing how it changes.
Let's speak a little bit more about that. I'm just curious, as you see folks cycle in and out of your housing, how quickly does it take someone to work through your shelter into your communal housing and then
Literally
transition?
about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll come into the homeless shelter and really just literally need to get from one check to another, and then they're back on their own, or they're back living with a family member, or able to rent. 2 weeks usually they'll come in, and within, I'd say 3 days, they're getting their rest and they're feeling much better. They're already starting to look for work while they're in the homeless shelter. And then they transition into the men or women's home, sometimes even as little as a week. And usually within that week, they're finding work.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's amazing how quickly it turns around. It's not a real long, drawn-out process. They really, when they're given the opportunity, they can really do it. It's just, it is difficult. And I agree with them. It's difficult to find a job if you're living and camping, and in the morning you have to come and try to find a place to take a shower. And your clothes are not ironed; they're nice and wrinkled now. So it is. Like I said, I don't allow them to make excuses, but I do understand the difficulties of being homeless.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what sort of resources do you use then to help them find work? Yeah.
Well, first of all, we put them on a work schedule, which literally, it's actually written out what time they get up in the morning, what time they leave the house, etc., how they're supposed to leave the house, completely ready. And then resources like the Goodwill Job Connection. They're wonderful. I send them down there to Mindy. She helps them from the beginning of a resume, even if they've never made one, all the way. How to do an online application. Same with the Department of Economic Security. They're wonderful down there as well. They will literally help them walk through entering an online application. And then luckily, with being in the community for so long, I do have quite a few people who will call me and say, Angie, we are hiring here. If you have anyone who's willing to work, have them show up here at this time and ask for this person. So that's what makes it really nice. The community really does want to help. And then once they get a job, again, it's amazing how their whole demeanor changes, the confidence level. Yeah, and then it just starts, it just blossoms from there once they do get a job.
No, I can believe that. I mean, we have such a need here for a workforce, and it sounds like you're getting folks ready for that workforce. So it's just such a needed service here.
And it's really great. The community is really open on calling and saying, hey, we need people, send them to us, which I think is really wonderful. So I'm pretty much easy to get. They're able to get employment within probably about a week of them starting. At the most, maybe 2 weeks, but more than likely it actually starts within that week.
Fantastic. So do you have plans then on expanding your homeless shelter? Do you feel like you're at a point now where you...
I think the homeless shelter, we're going to keep, we have enough that it's cycling in enough people and I'm able to transition them out, because that's the big deal. With the homeless shelter, again, sometimes people just need a night or two or even a week. But that's just a transition onto an actual home that has a schedule and has sign in, sign out, requirements, accountability, because that's what you need to keep moving on. So luckily I have those other homes that I can transition them out to. And so initially it is just a homeless shelter just to get them off the streets and good night's sleep and a start, but then they transition into the other ones. So at this point I'm doing well. I would probably in the next year kind of probably open up more communal living homes only because the need is so great. Yeah, with individuals needing affordable housing.
And does it fluctuate by season, or do you find it pretty consistent? Pretty
steady. Yeah. Pretty steady. Just I'm finding the older population is increasing. I have probably 80% of the calls I get are people who are over 55, 60.
Is that right? Over 80%, you said?
Over 80%.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and big reason for that is that's an age group that's not used to asking for help. They were taught to, you deal with it, you fix it on your own, you don't ask for help. So by the time they ask for help, it's almost to the point where it's really, really difficult on them. They have expended all the resources they've had. They haven't asked any friends because they don't want to be a burden, and it's down to the wire where they're actually going to be literally on the street. And a lot of them are ailing with some health issues. You know, and at 72 or 75, if you have health issues, to be on the street, whether it's winter or summer, it's not good.
Sure.
Definitely not good. And the neat caveat is they have pets, and that's their family member, and they will not leave their family member. And I know that. I happen to be a pet lover, but they won't leave their pet. And it's really important that they're able to bring them. It changes the whole thing. As long as they're able to bring their cat or their dog, or sometimes we have multiple, because we don't just limit them to one pet. It's amazing how they feel better once they're able to get a place for their pet, because believe it or not, their thing is they're worried about where their pet's going to be.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
And again, if folks want to get more information or contact you, they would do so by visiting
angiesouthaz.com. But if they need immediate attention, which is what I would suggest, is call me at the 928-301-2169.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And again, we're going to take a quick break and be back just after 1 minute. Thank you.
There are people who struggle with addiction and homelessness. Sometimes it may feel like there is nothing we can do to help.
But there is. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help those in need transition away from homelessness.
When you give someone a handout, you could actually be supporting an addiction.
A better life starts with better health, especially for those living in the streets.
Support solutions, not addictions. You can make a difference. Visit cottonwoodcares.com.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching Inside Cottonwood. Appreciate you tuning in today. We've got, well, first I'm the host, Mayor Tim Elinski. With me is Angie Lozano. We've been discussing her communal housing projects, as well as her homeless shelter, different options that she has available for affordable housing in our area, open to all. And then we wanted to talk briefly at the end of the segment here about parents of addicted loved ones.
Yes. Yes.
So
I think it's a wonderful support group we have. It's every Monday, 6 to 7:30, light refreshments, again, no charge. We have a wonderful recovery community here. There's a lot of help and support. There's meetings and different things, of course, Spectrum, for people who are dealing with drugs and alcohol. But I was getting probably no less than about 7 calls a week from parents or spouses or even children with parents who had addiction issues. What can I do to help them? I want to help them. I want to fix this. So then I thought, you know, let's go ahead and put something together that will help the parents or spouses of addicted loved ones. Well, I met a gal in a class I was taking, and she said, well, how can I help you? How can I help you? And I said, well, you know what would really be great is if we could put together the support group. So she went online to look for some documentation and stuff. It turned out that there's an actual group which you can actually take a facilitator class to do something like this. So her and I took the facilitating class, and sure enough, we started meeting every Monday. I have had parents that have come in and have made miraculous change in their life, which in turn has changed their addicted loved one's life. For instance, we had a mom who came in who had a son who'd been addicted to methamphetamines for 20 years. She loves her son. He was at that point, I think, in jail. She goes, I don't know, I don't want to do it anymore the wrong way. I must be doing something wrong. Right. And again, there's no right or wrong, but we got what she meant. So she started taking the class, and it talks about boundaries and how basically you take care of yourself first, and then in return, your addicted loved one will take care of himself. So the good news is the son was getting out of jail, and she says, I don't want him back in the house. He's violent, he's rude, and it's scary for me to be in my home. I don't feel safe in my home. So through the class, because anything about our support group is we have an educational component, which teaches you about the addiction, etc. But we also have a component of sharing. So you can actually share, give advice, not that anyone has to take it, but everyone can kind of brainstorm and go, well, this is what maybe we've done. This is what she's done and it's worked. So what she did is some of the other mothers or parents were suggesting, hold firm. Do you want him to come back home? She says, no, I really think it'd be better if he found his own place. Long story short, she held firm. And it was hard. For 2 or 3 support groups, she came in and she goes, this is so hard. He calls and calls and calls. Well, the good news is because she wouldn't let him back home, he ended up going into a recovery home. He happened to come into my recovery home by coincidence, but he came into the recovery home, did that with us for a while. Then based on his needs at Spectrum, they were able to put him into an inpatient program for 30 days, which gave him a large amount of tools on how to deal with his addiction. And so he graduated that, and then of course came back to my recovery home, and then he graduated from my recovery home, did very well, had a job, and moved into his own place. It was a shared apartment, but still his own place. So his mom looks back, goes, wow, had I not made that stance and not let him back in, none of these great things would have happened.
Right.
So just by changing what was good for her, even though it was hard because it's not easy, a lot of things changed for him, but also for her, because she started feeling safe at home. She started to feel, well, gosh, what it was is I wasn't giving him the confidence that he possibly needed to know he could do it on his own. So now they have a better relationship. It's all still a work in progress, that they can actually talk to each other. She lives in her home. He lives in his home. He has his dog at his home because she used to take care of his dog. And he's actually grown, but so is she. And she's a happier person for it.
That's great.
So small things like that can really make a huge difference. Yeah.
And you meet once a week?
Once a week, every Monday, 6 to 7:30.
Okay.
And we go around the table and we basically check. Well, first of all, we introduce ourselves, say, why we're here. You can share if you want. You don't have to share if you don't want. But there is a time where you can check in, and if someone needs help with something, you can feel free to ask, well, what do you think we should do? What could we do?
Right.
One example that a mom gave at our group one time was, it's basically like being on a frozen lake, and you have your loved one right in the center of the lake, and they're doing what they need to do in life. But if you walk onto the frozen lake to help them, it'll crack and everything will fall apart. So it's basically you can be on the sidelines rooting for them, being supportive, but you can't go over and do it for them. Yeah. So it's really a neat way of learning to do things differently.
Sure.
And I even have had children who have parents who that they feel like they have to parent, because the adults are addicted too. And it's been really great for them to come in and know that they don't have to fix it. They take care of themselves, and in return, mom or dad will start to take care of themselves. Yeah.
Again, a tremendous need.
Yeah, definitely.
Substance abuse continues to rise.
Yeah, definitely. But it's been great, and I love it when the parents come back and share, guess what we did, and guess what happened, and the majority of the parents are anywhere between the ages of 60 and 75, 80.
Okay.
Even 85, we have a grandmother that's 85.
Wow. Great.
So definitely a need. Yeah. Glad we're able to do that.
Well, thanks for pioneering that here in our community.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Another feather in your cap.
I feel really great about being able to help. And
well,
it's great when we see all the successes, because really it's our community that we're making bigger and better. And if we continue, it'll be a great community to continue to live in.
You should be proud of your accomplishments.
Thank you, I am.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Is there anything else you want to share with us before we...
No, but just, I wanted to just mention one thing, is reach out to just one person. I mean, we always hear they need to do something. I always hear that all the time. Well, they need to do this, and they need to do that, and they need to build this, and they need to... they are really us. We're part of the community. There are neighbors that are in need, and it doesn't mean you have to give them money or do anything different other than just reach out and just see how they're doing. Talk to one person a day, just one person a week, and say, how are you doing? And in that moment, understand that what they may tell you is not good news, but just listen, because sometimes they just need to be able to be heard for the moment, and that they're cared about.
I agree. That's very profound, really, because I think it's important that we recognize we it's up to us really to be a part of the solution.
Of the solution, yeah.
And it
we
doesn't
can.
take much.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And sometimes just being in the human element with another person who's felt despair, frustration, loneliness, or grief, just sharing that moment is huge, huge, and can help that person that day feel worthwhile and give them hope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Angie, for being in today.
Thanks
Again,
for
you're just
having me
a real pioneer and a champion in our community, and you do a
thank
lot
you.
to make folks' lives better, and you
I do
work
try.
so hard
I
for
do
those
try hard.
vulnerable. So thank you for your hard work.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay.
And thanks again for joining us here today on Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Mayor Tim Elinski, and we'll see you again next month. Thanks.